Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I congratulate the member for Stratford and Bow on that incredible maiden speech. The pride that she has in her community really shone through and was incredibly infectious. I'm truly honoured to be given the opportunity to deliver my maiden speech in this House. I want to begin by paying tribute to my predecessor, Mary Robinson. Despite our political differences, I had a good working relationship with her, and I was fortunate to work with her as part of the Cheadle Towns Board, where we helped deliver much-needed investment into the constituency, including developing plans for Cheadle train station. I know Mary took great interest in local business, and her work on the board was testament to this. I wish both her and her husband Stephen all the best in their next chapter. I'd also like to take this moment to pay tribute to my Liberal Democrat predecessors for Cheadle. First, the incredible Patsy Carlton, who is very much missed and I know held a great deal of respect across all sides of this House. And Mark Hunter, who served Cheadle for 10 years as its MP and served in government as an assistant whip. I have huge shoes to fill following both Mark and Patsy, who are legends in the constituency, and I hope I can build upon their legacy. If I may take a quick moment also, Madam Deputy Speaker, to thank my incredible team for leading such a brilliant and hard-fought election campaign, and also to my family for their support. Most of all, my incredible partner, Louise, for all her love and backing over the years. I must, though, confess it's here where I have to confess to breaking my first election pledge. Not long before the general election was called, Lou and I found out we were to be expecting our first child. And while we're, of course, over the moon, the news came off the back of a very hard local election campaign and amidst Lou experiencing extreme morning sickness. So being the supportive partner I am, I assured Lou that this would be an absolute first trimester of peace, tranquility and calm, as there is absolutely no way the Prime Minister would call a general election within the summer. Now, we all know how that turned out, so I'd like to put on record my apologies to Lou for breaking this promise and will endeavour to make sure it's the first and last time I break my word to a constituent. Cheadle is truly a brilliant place. We have wonderful green spaces, brilliant schools and some fantastic high streets. But what makes the constituency so special is the people. The area is built on the foundations of so many community groups and organisations, all campaigning and working to make our community a better place for everyone. There's allotment groups like Billy's Lane who invite local schools to learn about growing food and healthy eating. There's Cheadle Civic Society, led by the inspirational Philip Gould-Bourne, who protect Cheadle's heritage and historic character. There are many faith groups, like Cheadle Masjid, Grove Lane Baptist and Yeshurun Hebrew congregation that provide support for our most vulnerable residents, and hundreds upon hundreds of community organisations and friends groups like the Friends of Carwood, who are the guardians of some of our most precious green spaces and rightfully challenge those who would do them harm. These are the people that make Cheadle so special, and I would like to thank them for putting their faith in me as Cheadle's Member of Parliament. I've always said that I will be their voice in Westminster, not Westminster's voice in Cheadle, and that will always be my goal. And there is, of course, much to do. Our local hospital, Stepping Hill, is in dire need of investment. For too long, staff and patients have had to make do with a hospital that is literally falling apart. The outpatients building was condemned and is now demolished, whilst in March, the intensive care unit, which looks after some of the most critical patients, was temporarily closed because the ceiling was coming in. Nurses have even told me about the bucket squads, and to the uninitiated, this is a term they've coined for an extra duty they now have on shift, where they each have a bucket to place down when it rains to catch the water coming through the roof. Madam Deputy Speaker, this is a disgrace. No hospital, let alone one as busy as Stepping Hill, should be operating in these conditions, which is why my first act as the Member of Parliament for Cheadle was to write to the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, asking for the funds that Stepping Hill desperately needs for repairs. And I'm pleased that the government has since said that funding will be made available, but until we get the detail and the money, I will keep fighting to ensure Stepping Hill, its staff and patients get the funding they deserve. I will also keep fighting to get my residents the support they need during the cost of living crisis. Now, this is an issue of huge importance to me personally. When I was 13, my mum, brother and I were threatened with homelessness because Mum, who worked several jobs to make ends meet, could not afford the private rents. We faced relying on friends who could offer couches or spare rooms to help us, and whilst the idea was sold as a fun holiday to me and my brother, I can remember how anxious and worried my mom looked and how conversations between adults would suddenly stop as I walked into the room. Life felt unsettled, and I could tell that my mum was scared and she needed help. And it was a Lib Dem councillor called David Bruce that helped us by fighting and getting us a council house. Because of this councillor, we had a home, giving us the security and stability to get on in life. Home was no longer an anxious place. Mum was happier, and my brother and I could focus on our schoolwork. And it was this experience that inspired me to get into politics, because I saw firsthand the positive impact it can have on people's day-to-day lives. Without that councillor, I can honestly say I would not be standing here today. But this wasn't the end of our story. We still struggled. Faced with rising bills, Mum would sometimes have to decide whether to put money into the electric meter or get food into the cupboards. And if I think about it, I can still hear the clunk of the pay meter going off and plunging the house into darkness. And Mum would often joke that that was the cue for us to go to bed. Sadly, this is a story still being lived out all too frequently when I speak to my constituents. The choices many families are having to make are horribly familiar. The choice to heat your home or feed your children should never be forced on anyone. Yet thousands of families across Stockport face this choice every day. I was proud that the Liberal Democrats in Stockport Council led the way in establishing Warm Spaces programme, supporting community organisations with the funds to help shelter vulnerable residents that couldn't afford to heat their homes during the winter months. And many other authorities are now doing this across the country. But as wonderful as this is, we can't sit back and accept this situation. I think that Great British Energy is a step in the right direction. I welcome the move to restore British investment in clean energy. And if Great British Energy does actually bring down costs for my constituents, that is nothing but a good thing. But I will do all I can to help my residents in Cheadle, and when it comes to the cost of living, I will hold this government to account when I believe it is not doing enough to support those that need it. Better health services, support for the cost of living crisis, and championing my amazing community. Madam Deputy Speaker, these are some of the things that I will do as Cheadle's Member of Parliament. It's truly the honour of my life to be stood here working for this place working for the place I call home, the place and now raising my family. I hope I will do Cheadle proud.